Hi folks, Fat Eck here with a wee preview of Aberdeen at Ibrox tomorrow. I'm talking to you on the evening of Friday, the 29th of September, the penultimate day of what has been a hell of a busy month for Rangers. Quite an emotional one too. It's been all over the place, starting off with that defeat to Celtic at Ibrox and ending with Rangers in a kind of four-game winning streak across three different competitions. This is going to be our fourth successive game at Ibrox tomorrow on the last day of the month, and it's massive. It's massive for Michael Beale. I think we're just getting to that point where the 4 clean sheets in our last 4 games, it's getting talked up quite a bit, and quite rightly so. It is impressive. But we're going to slip up tomorrow to Aberdeen. I think it'll be kind of back to square one for the manager. So it's really interesting to see him in his usual Friday pre-match presser today. Especially after the press conference during the week when Neil Banfield got wheeled out, as he does for the previous round of the League Cup, when his assistant manager was taking on the media duties and kind of put his foot in it a few times. Just slips of the tongue, but also a few of the things he was saying weren't really ringing true, kind of talking too much about at that point, it was the clean sheets record after they'd just been booed off the park against Motherwell in the previous match seemed a bit irrelevant. Seemed like papering over the cracks, and he was talking about the match with PSV Eindhoven at Ibrox as being a win. A slip of the tongue, but later on in that interview, even though he was correcting it, he was talking about it being a 2-each draw, obviously. He was still kind of presenting it as a positive performance, which it was on the night, but it turned into being just a kind of first half really of a 7-3 aggregate mauling. So he wasn't doing too well, Neil Banfield, although I think like everybody else at Rangers just now, he's been harshly treated because of the kind of situation we find ourselves in. A lot of uncertainty around about a team who, nevertheless, I don't think you can deny the fact that they are still gelling. There's a whole lot of new players that we wanted. We wanted a clear out last summer. I didn't particularly, but the support in general, that was the general feeling that a lot of players had to go, had to get a lot of new players in. And that's what's happened. And surprise, surprise, it's taken a while for them all to gel together. So I thought today, Michael Beale, who I've been finding a bit, from a personal point of view, this is completely subjective, almost too subjective. I don't think it's really bears any kind of scientific scrutiny. He's been annoying me with press conferences. I was all through the international break when we're contemplating the kind of the terrible start to the season, compounded by that hammering in Eindhoven and the loss at home to Celtic. I found myself sticking up for the man, and a lot of criticism he was coming under online and in the media, social media in particular. You're like, no, it's too much and it needs to be qualified a bit more accurately than that, and a lot of it was just out of order. It was a pile-on basically. And then the minute he stepped out to face the media again for the first time since that Celtic defeat with his pre-match presser ahead of that St Johnstone game, the trip to McDiarmid Park, I just found he really annoyed me. I thought he was just talking too much about stuff that was not Rangers standard, if you know what I mean. Again, bumming up clean sheets and how we'd had a few clean sheets already that season, and there was also a couple of games that season where we hadn't scored at all and the opposition just needed one goal to beat us. So I think I find it with Michael Beale, and it's only natural. I'm always keen to kind of check myself with this one, that he sounds like someone who's impersonating what he thinks a manager should sound like. And that's actually going to happen. That's only natural when he's not even a year into the job, and he's barely a year into management in his own right. Altogether, he's a short spell at QPR, so he's not really a seasoned manager in his own right, and it's only natural that he will sometimes sound like he's kind of impersonating a manager. But it was starting to get to me, so it's interesting today. And I know you can only tell so much from press conferences, it's how somebody talks to the media. But the ironic thing, or the slightly sick thing, was after Neil Banfield spoke on Tuesday ahead of the League Cup clash with Livingston, which we waltzed in the end up, so all credit to the management team. Kamar Roof come on, and I don't know, Kamar Roof, it certainly comes up second on YouTube when you're looking at the Rangers page on YouTube for these press conferences, and he sounded every inch the Ranger. I was waxing lyrical about him on Gersnet, which is, in case you haven't seen any of these pods before, I'll stop trying to shove this down your throat, but Gersnet is the best Rangers podcast in the whole land, the whole Poddington, the town of Poddington. Gersnet's just the best podcast out there, so check that out if you haven't already. But I was saying on that I thought Kamar Roof just sounded absolutely every inch the Ranger, the kind of stuff I wanted to hear, and kind of proved that, Neil Banfield, there was something in the fact that he was kind of annoying us with some of the things he was saying, because Kamar Roof was just sounding so determined, so focused, and you were so happy for him that he was finally finding a run of games, finally getting a bit of fitness after he had an operation in his hip, and then he went out there on Wednesday night, and then he's been played in a kind of withdrawn role, this false nine or whatever you call it, when I would rather he was just an out and out striker through the middle. But he certainly wasn't getting as involved as he should. I didn't know if it was just my imagination, just my lack of tactical understanding, because Rangers in general were controlling the game from start to finish on Wednesday night, and it turned out, of course, he was injured, and he didn't tell the manager he was injured, and I felt as if Michael Beale kind of hung him out to dry a bit with that. That's something that's been kept indoors as far as I was concerned. It was kept behind closed doors, should have been kept within the team, because I certainly don't blame Kamar Roof after everything he's been through. I think the last thing you want to blame him for is not wanting to admit to himself that he's injured yet again. And as a guy, I would, you keep him around. He's been for a scan. It wouldn't even surprise me, to be honest, if Michael Beale was doing another of his kind of embarrassingly convoluted sleights of hand. I think he tries the mind games with opposition managers, and Kamar Roof turned out he was actually fine, and he plays tomorrow, or he plays in Cyprus. But I think it'd be a lie too far to say that he was away for a scan and we didn't know what the situation was. Rangers don't know the situation yet with whatever is a problem he's growing, and it's a problem he hasn't had before. So he's been for a scan, and we're going to find out in due course. But we don't know today how long he's going to be out or what the problem is. So everybody's just writing Kamar Roof off for the rest of the season, for the rest of his Rangers career, and people wanting him out the door and what have you. But we'll wait to find out what the problem is. But I felt it was a strange one for the manager to say, to intimate during the week at full time. On Wednesday, I could accept it. He's a bit annoyed when he's been interviewed, and he says, Kamar should have told me. He should have let us know he had a problem instead of waiting to half time, because obviously you think he's going to exacerbate the problem. I was doing post-match reaction pod for Jersey after the Motherwell game during the week when Rabbi Matondo get injured. Rabbi Matondo, who's been playing really well for us this season, and he'd been played in the wrong position by Michael Beale that day, or not his most kind of familiar position. He'd put him on the right hand side, and his knee goes, and you're thinking, is that because he's putting a different pressure on it, because he's playing on the other side of the pitch from what he's used to? And that's me looking for reasons to have a go at the manager. But Rabbi Matondo comes out the back of the Broomlin, the back of the Copeland, while I'm trying to do a post-match pod. These emergency doors open, and where the players come out, they come down it's through the Copeland Road stand. They now exit onto the car park behind the Copeland Road stand, and the stewards bring in temporary kind of crush barriers, and the players all hang about and sign autographs for their kids. Or parents gather with their kids around this kind of temporary kind of tunnel almost to the car park where all their fancy motors are waiting. While they're doing that, they're obviously thinking Rabbi Matondo needs protection. And this big kind of burly steward who's more like a bodyguard, he opens double doors, and his first thing he does is just shouts, "No autographs. He's not taking any autographs, folks. Need to, he's injured." But Rabbi Matondo's just walking, no crutches, no wheelchair, not even anybody helping him. There's just one steward who is more interested in fending off 5-year-olds who want an autograph than he is in helping Rabbi Matondo get to his car. And he's obviously going to go and drive up the road then. So I didn't see any great kind of protection of Matondo at that point in time. It just looked a bit half-arsed, to be honest. Like we were risking, as a club, exacerbating Rabbi Matondo's injury. I'm not a doctor, obviously. You can tell by the state of me, I don't have the first clue about health. But yeah, I felt as if the manager was kind of selling Kamar Roof, kind of hanging him out to dry a bit with that presser today, at a time where I'm struggling to get on side with Michael Beale. The main news was that was it. Kamar Roof is the only further injury from the other night, but everybody else is too far along the road. Of their injuries are not far enough along the road to be in contention for the arrival of Aberdeen tomorrow. So we're still looking pretty kind of thin on the ground in terms of the first team. And suddenly Michael Beale, as I've said before, he's getting slagged during the summer, in fairness to him, for signing lots of midfielders and strikers, and that's the very department of the team that's needing the most players. That's where the injuries are occurring. The defence, we've actually got Ben Davies coming back, and the manager was also bumming him up today, again, kind of intimating that he wasn't. He would never wanted to sell Ben Davies, and or that an offer didn't come in. Ben Davies has come back into the team in place of John Souttar, who's been responsible for a few goals that we've conceded in the early part of the season, but shouldn't be playing on the side. He's a right-sided centre half. So he should be playing the Connor Goldson position. So I feel as if John Souttar's been harshly treated, and I don't remember the manager being really kind of strident and letting us know that Ben Davies was definitely staying, at the start of the season. It feels like today we're finding out that Ben Davies had an injury. I mean, I know that was talked about, but it's kind of the emphasis is put there. He had a new injury when he come back from the summer, and that's why he wasn't starting games at the start of the season. But it feels as if the manager's trying to take credit for the fact that Ben Davies is now part of this defence that's suddenly not conceding any goals, and the manager should take credit. It's down to him, but he should leave it to us to credit him. I don't know. It felt wrong. But I'm probably just being a bit over suspicious of Michael Beale just now, and hopefully he's just going to keep shoving it down my throat. I'm fine with the whole situation of we've got a new team and the team's starting slowly and they're bedding in, and I can still envisage us actually winning the league this season, and suddenly we're turning in fantastic performances. But I just wish Michael Beale would shut up. It's every time he speaks, it's when I start getting the fear more than I do when I'm watching us struggling on the park. But that's just me. I'll be wrong in that one. This is just personal opinions here. He also mentioned Abdullah instead of Abdallah Sima a lot, so I don't know if that's something that needs to be looked into. And he talked about 360. Everything at a new club's kind of coming at you 360, and I'm like, surely means 24/7, but this thing's done at 360 degrees. It's coming at you from all different angles, so I'll let my way with that one. And then we had the one and only Sam Lammers. He was the player put up for the presser today. Surely he's playing tomorrow because we're so thin on the ground, as I say, when it comes to attacking players. And that was a really interesting interview. Lammers with his big kind of shiny face and his kind of thick Titian red hair. You will lose it eventually, Sam. Don't get too dependent on the hair, mate. He's got like globe-sized eyes. Very rural looking guy, Sam Lammers. But it wasn't combine harvesters. He was talking about, it was combination play, fast short combinations that he plays with Cifuentes and Tav the other night that harvested goals for Rangers. I went to university. This is my partner. This is what I'm reduced to. I'm not a real winger, said Sam Lammers today. I'm not a real winger. And I thought, is this him actually telling the manager, don't be playing me out wide? Because he was out wide the other night, and he was out wide up at St Johnstone, out wide on the right-hand side. But then he talks about how he likes to have a bit of freedom, and he likes to come inside. So I want to be free to move in spaces, to get the ball facing the opposition goal, basically. And I think he was talking, his English isn't perfect, still way better than mine. His English isn't quite perfect yet, he's not quite got the nuances. He'll pick that up in no time at all. Obviously a really intelligent guy who's been speaking Italian all last season, so he's doing a bit of moving about the continent and speaking all the different lingos. But he was saying, basically, I think he was trying to see how it suits him being out wide on the right because he can come in and get a better, he's playing these interchange passes like the other night with James Tavernier coming up from right wing back, and then Cifuentes was playing this kind of right side of the three-man midfield, and that suited him to get him into the situation. He likes to be free. I want to be free, and I'm thinking, you actually want a free transfer? Or is it a Christmas free you're looking for? A January free? Mr. Lammers, the way he was talking, I'm not a real winger, but you can play out wide all the time, Sam. Is this something you're trying to let the manager know? But no, I think what he was basically saying was it's working. He wants to get into the spaces. He wants to be he doesn't see himself as maybe as an out and out striker, but he certainly wants to score goals, but he wants to add to the creation of goals and what have you. So it was an interesting conversation, trying to work out exactly what he meant apart from anything else. And I think that sums up the situation with Sam Lammers, and it sums up the situation with the attack and this whole thing that we don't know what's the best formation for Michael Beale, blah blah blah. The manager likes his attacking line to be free. That was the line from Sam Lammers. The manager likes his attacking line to be free, and he went on to say basically that suits him perfectly. So they don't want to be able to. The manager doesn't want anybody, supporters probably included to be able to pin down exactly what the team's doing. It's all about creating attacking freedom. And I think we saw that last season where Michael Beale came in and he's using Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's squad, also Steven Gerrard's squad that he'd worked with himself as part of the coaching staff, Michael Beale. And the fluidity. We had the Geo horseshoe, a very recognisable pattern, tactic, shape. We knew exactly what we were getting then and we hated it. And there was Michael Beale coming in and really increasing the attacking fluidity, making it much more subtle. The movement was greatly increased. We looked a lot slicker, just a lot more comfortable, and a lot more intellectual, tactically. So he's got all these new players now. I think he's trying to give them that kind of freedom, that sense of movement, but maybe they don't even know whether they should be starting these days. So I think we saw Abdallah Sima coming on to a game the other night as well. He's been credited with 2 goals, basically. One, he's only scored one, essentially, and a lot of people would have that taken off him because of that horrendous Masonic VAR conspiracy. But I think he was responsible for 2 of the 4 goals the other night. Seaman played really well. Lovely balls getting played forward by both our left backs on the night. The one and only Ridwan Yilmaz, and also Borna Barisic when he came on as a sub for Yilmaz. So what do we think is going to happen tomorrow? What team are we going to play? I would be quite happy, or certainly not surprised, if it was the 11 who started the second half the other night, because we think Roof, obviously it looks like Roof is going to be out, so Dessers is going to start in his place, and I hope he's more forward than Roof was. The formation might be different. I would favour the diamond, as I say, the kind of 4 diamond 2. So I would go for Jack Butland in goals, James Tavernier on the right hand side at wing back, it would have to be Ridvan Yilmaz, who's not in the European squad, so it would seem crazy to risk Borna as ahead of the game in Cyprus on Thursday night. Although we're in this situation which did for Tom Lawrence, it's probably done for Rabbi Matondo as well, it's probably done for Kamar Roof, where Ridvan Yilmaz has been playing his way back from an injury, as the manager was saying today, from a period out injured, and suddenly had to go off the other night with cramp or whatever it was, and suddenly we're asking him to start 2 games in a trot, and really, he started that game up at Perth as well. But all things considered, I would have Yilmaz at left back. You've got to keep Goldson and Davis with the success they've been having, and I would then have Ryan Jack sitting at the base of a diamond with John Lundstrom and Cifuentes being the kind of body of that diamond, and have Lammers sitting as the kind of the top of that diamond, the point of that diamond, with it's going to have to be Sima and Dessers just kind of off him, really. Just he's Lammers sitting behind with Dessers and Sima just off him as a kind of attacking combination. Just get it spinning, get it burling, all the stuff that Lammers has been talking about. Just get those little tight interpasses. But he's probably going to go out, maybe it's common sense, he goes with the same formation he went with the other night, but I don't think Michael Beale would be able to resist tinkering with it again further than just starting with Dessers instead of Roof. I don't think he likes the idea. It goes against every fibre of his being to put out the same team in the same formation and let Barry Robson, the Aberdeen manager, know exactly what he's going to do. Aberdeen, they've had 1 win this season. It was last week. They got their first win of the league season last week. They've won in Europe and they won in the League Cup. Yeah, I think they beat Stirling Albion in the first League Cup, and they beat Ross County the other night, although County had a man sent off. So they've beaten Ross County 2 games in the trot, home and away, arriving at Ibrox tomorrow. They absolutely hate us. They usually put everything into it. I don't know if HJK Helsinki in the Conference League group stages, who they'll be playing on Thursday night at Pittodrie, I don't know if that's enough of a distraction for them. They lost 2-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt in Frankfurt in their first game. That was a massive game for Aberdeen. I think a lot of their players, and they got a lot of new players as well, they've had to bed in a lot of new players, so that's why they started the season so terribly in the league, and also were beaten in the Europa League qualifiers or playoff round. The way we were in the next stage up, we dropped from the Champions League qualifiers into the Europa League group stages. They've dropped from the Europa League qualifiers into the Conference League group stages, and similar situation, they drew 2 each in their first game, thinking they were fantastic, as we did against PSV at Ibrox, except their first game was away. It was in Gothenburg against Häcken, the Swedish champions, no less. That's a decent side. That's a decent league there. and then they've lost to them at Pittodrie. They've been beaten at Pittodrie, a bit of a disaster for them, much as it was for us going over to Eindhoven. So they've dropped into the Conference League, and I think the game against Eintracht was really, that was the big one. That was the big trip for them in this group. So I don't know if HJK Helsinki is enough of a distraction or attraction for them to take their mind off tomorrow. I hope it is slightly, because I don't really care how it happens. I just love to see his stuff in Aberdeen. That would be really good. And I think it's one that Michael Beale definitely needs. Last season, we only lost once to Aberdeen. We only failed to beat them once in five games against them. And the time we weren't particularly impressive in any of those games, except when we scudded them 4-1 at Ibrox. Was that the game Michael Beale was in the stand? Because Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was still the manager. Our best performance against Aberdeen, the most comprehensive performance against Aberdeen last season, was before Michael Beale took over. It was one of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's last games in charge, and Rid van Jelma started, and he came off injured in that one. He'd hit the old sniper's bullet early on in that one. Aberdeen took the lead. It was Jim Goodwin's Aberdeen. They were flying high at that point. They had a great start to the season. They were coming at us, and we just destroyed them. We just put 4 past them after they'd taken the lead, and after we'd lost Yilmaz. I was at the game where Michael Beale was sitting in the stand. He'd been over at the Loudon, and he was kind of like the ghost at the feast, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst did not appreciate that. But ended up, Michael got the job, and now he's in that situation. Maybe Gio's going to turn up and sit in the main stand tomorrow, just to see how Michael gets on, because if he slips up in this one, I think there'll be a vacancy opening up soon. He's got to keep it going, Michael Beale, all the way to this next international break, which ends with us in Paisley, just as it did for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. It was a World Cup, it was an international break for Gio, but Gio goes to Paisley, gets a draw, and doesn't come back. And don't know. Just there's a lot of parallels with what happened last season occurring just now, but maybe it's just the fixture list. But yeah, we really need to be getting out there tomorrow and getting Aberdeen done. Michael Beale beat them 3-2. The only second game in charge of Rangers was that one we're 2-1 down deep into injury time, scored the 2 late goals from Scott Arfield up at Pittodrie. That was great fun. That was a great laugh, but it was a terrible performance. And the manager himself, Beale, was certainly not celebrating those goals that night. I was impressed with him then. If I'm talking about in press conferences, I was certainly impressed with his demeanour and his reaction to that one. He was taking no delight in that at all. Just saying Rangers we were terrible and almost lucky to get away with the victory. He then had them in the League Cup semi-final, where they were Majewski and the Macedonian and Duke, the kind of front two. They have given us problems before, and Majewski, he scored the goal that gave them the lead at Hampden that day, and Aberdeen were down to 10 men in extra time, and that's pretty much the only reason we beat them. By the odd goal after extra time. That day we lost at Pittodrie, the next visit to Pittodrie. Yeah, I think we were concentrating the Scottish Cup semi-final the following week against Celtic, when our season was kind of going to be made or broke. And we lost 2-0 that day on a Sunday at Pittodrie. It was just a terrible performance. And one of the few poor kind of league performances against MDL and Celtic from Michael Beale last season. We then beat Aberdeen. There weren't poor results, and there's a few poor performances, we still managed to get a result. And then I think it was 2 weeks later we beat Aberdeen in the league at Ibrox 1-0, Todd Cantwell getting the only goal. But yeah, so we had a good record against them as a club last season, 4 out of 5, winning 4 out of 5 games against them. But we'll need to wait and see. We'll need to wait and see what's going to happen tomorrow, because I think Aberdeen having a wee bit of a transition period just now. You've got Europe on their plate again, the European group stages. I think they haven't had for quite a while, so we'll see how they kind of cope with that. I hope they don't. I hope we absolutely scud them, and I hope you guys have a fantastic Saturday afternoon at the Brox.